Now, one of the biggest breakthroughs since ChatGPT is actually being able to customize or personalize ChatGPT to do exactly what you want and nothing else. Now, before, all of this was possible using an array of all kinds of third-party tools. So things like Flowise AI, LangChain, embeddings databases, and all kinds of other tools gave you the possibility to do just that. But that is no longer the case, because right now, you can customize and personalize ChatGPT for your specific use case straight from OpenAI. And that means you can customize and personalize ChatGPT to do pretty much anything that you want using the easy-to-use tools provided by OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. And so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can personalize and customize ChatGPT to do exactly what you want. Plus, you'll be able to easily share your customized version of ChatGPT with pretty much anyone that you want. I'm also going to show you a fully functioning proof of concept app that I not only built, but also launched publicly that you can use to build your own customized versions of ChatGPT and share them with others. Now, before we get started, as always, all the apps and all the resources that I demonstrate on this channel are going to be available to view and or clone from my Patreon page. And you can learn more about our amazing Patreon community using the link in the description below. Now, before I explain to you how you can customize and personalize ChatGPT to do exactly what you want, let me show you a fully working, fully functioning proof of concept app that I built that does exactly that. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to explain to you in more details how exactly you can do the same thing. So here we are inside of Flutterflow, which is my favorite no-code builder right now. Flutterflow makes it super easy to build all kinds of apps simply by dragging and dropping. Now, before I show you how I build this app, let's go ahead and run this app so that you can see exactly what it does, and then we're going to come back into the builder here. All right, so here's the app, and the first screen that we are seeing is a screen that says your ChatGPTs, and it's telling us you don't have any ChatGPTs, you can create one below. So we're going to click here, and we are greeted by a dialog box that's asking us a couple of things. So things like name, instructions, and optionally a file that we can include with this specific ChatGPT. So for this ChatGPT, I'm not going to include a file, but for the next one, I'm going to include the file to show you how they behave. Okay, so let's say we call this a history expert, and I have a prompt here ready, and instructions is really just a prompt, and this is simply a way to tell the system how we want things to be answered. Okay, so in this case, you're an expert historian. I will ask you questions about history, and you'll do your best to answer. Okay, so we're going to click on create ChatGPT. We're going to wait a couple of moments, and then it's telling us no file submitted, and we have this ChatGPT created. And here you can see this icon here, and as you can see, it's white. That means that there is no file there. It's kind of this blank icon, because if we were going to submit a file, this icon would be different. Okay, so now we can click here, and we can start a chat with this specific ChatGPT. So we can ask it a question. So why did the Roman Empire collapse? Answer in one sentence. Make it brief. Okay, why did the Roman Empire collapse? Answer in one sentence. Let's go ahead and send it there. It's telling us sending message. This is our message here, and as you can see, it's thinking, and immediately it got the response and it changed it, right? It overlaid it. So we no longer need to refresh anything. You don't need to do anything. It's automatic, okay? So this is the answer it came back with. Now, we can go back, and if you go back here, you will see we have a new thread created, okay? So if we go back to our lists of ChatGPTs, click here, we are no longer redirected to the chat. We are redirected to a thread. And that is because when we create our custom ChatGPT, we're also mimicking the various threads that exists with the real version, right? With the real version, you have various threads that you communicate with. You're not communicating in one big thread. You're communicating in separate threads. And so we have this one ChatGPT here. We have this thread. And so you can come back here. You see the messages, you can ask it another question, or you can come back here and you can create another thread. So I'm going to create a brand new thread and I can ask it something like this. When was the EU established? Answer in just one sentence. We're going to click send. It says sending message. We see the message here. Now it's thinking again. Now it's waiting for response, and there's the response. The European Union was formally established on November 1st, 93. Okay, so now we can go back here and we see two threads, right? We see that we are under this history expert, ChatGPT, but we have two threads. When was the EU established and when did the Roman Empire collapse? Okay, so I can come back here and I can continue the chat, right, in this specific thread. And I can say, how many member states are there? Okay, I'm gonna click send. There's the message. Now it's thinking again, and let's see what it comes up with. And there you see it. As of my knowledge cutoff, the European Union has 27 member states. And because we are, communicating in the same thread, it knows the context, right? And understands the context. I don't need to say, how many member states does the European Union have? It knows what we're talking about, right? And so as a result, I can just have a conversation, okay? I can say something like, which are the biggest countries in the EU currently? Name 5, okay? Hit send, sending message, it's thinking, and there's the answer, the 5 biggest countries, etc., etc. Now I can come back here, and I can come to this thread here about the Roman Empire, and I can ask it other questions, okay? I can have that same conversation. Or I can come back out and I can create a new ChatGPT. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say it Roman Empire expert, and I'm going to give it a special prompt that I have prepared here. Okay, we're going to paste that. And the prompt says, you're an expert historian. I will provide you a file about the Roman Empire, and then we'll ask you questions. Please consult the file when answering. Okay. Now I'm going to click here and I have a bunch of files. So I have this Roman Empire PDF, which is essentially like a 400-page PDF about, the history of the Roman Empire. Okay. So we're going to open this up. I've added the file and now I'm going to click this button and we're going to create another ChatGPT customized with this name, with this prompt, and this time with the file that we have specified. So I'm going to click here. It's going to go ahead and upload the file from my computer. It's going to save it. And it's going to create another customized ChatGPT. And now we are seeing our second ChatGPT that we have created called Roman Empire Expert. And here we see this prompt here or instructions, as well as this icon here. And as you can see, it's a little bit different, specifying that we have included a file this time, unlike the previous ChatGPT. So now we can click on it and we can send a message, automatically creating a new thread and hopefully getting a response. So we can ask it something like this. What are the 2 main reasons as to why the Roman Empire collapsed? Be brief. Okay, so something like this, hit send. And now it's going to go ahead and send the message. And now it's thinking. So it's looking through the file, trying to come up with an answer. And here's the answer. The 2 main reasons for the collapse of the Roman Empire were etc., etc. And it's also citing the source, which means that it is referring to the document that we initially configured the specific ChatGPT with. And now if you go back, you can see that we have a new thread that was created. So we can come back here and we can continue the conversations. So something like this, during which years did the Roman Empire exist? We're going to send that. There's the question. Now it's thinking. Let's see what it says. All right. And there you have it. The Roman Empire began, etc., etc. And there's the source. Okay. So it's also citing the document, okay, which is exactly what we told this ChatGPT. This is how we configured it when we initially set it up. That was part of the prompt, to always refer to the document. So now we can go back. We have this one thread. We can also create another thread. We can talk about something else within the scope of the way that we configured this ChatGPT, namely Roman Empire in the file. Or we can go back and we can create another ChatGPT. So something like, let's say we're going to create a new one. So we're going to call it math. Okay. And we're going to say, you are an awesome math tutor. I'm going to ask you math questions and you are going to help me learn math. Okay. No files this time, something very, very simple. Click create ChatGPT, and there's our new ChatGPT. Click here and we can ask it another question, thereby creating a brand new thread. So we can ask it something like this: explain to me what is trigonometry and what is it. Click send, sending message. It's thinking, and let's see what it says. All right, and there's the answer. Trigonometry is a branch of mathematics that deals with etc., etc. So we are getting the answer here as well. So we can go back and we see that a new thread has been created. Now, if we go back again, and we can see that we have 3 customized ChatGPTs that we have created. And so we can continue this process. We can create more ChatGPTs, or we can continue to interact with the ChatGPTs that we have already created. All right, so now that you've seen this app, let's go back to Flutterflow and let me show you exactly how I build this app. There's actually a lot of interesting techniques, a lot of interesting tips that I want to share with you guys. And then at the end of the video, we are going to publish this app live so that you can see some of the interesting features and functionalities that you can take advantage of once this app has been launched on the internet. All right, so here we are inside of Flutterflow. Now, before I show you how this app works, I want to show you how I have my API calling done, because this app is doing a lot of API calling with OpenAI's API, right? Because this is the API reference. So we need to create an assistant. We need to create threads. We need to create messages. We need to get messages. We need to run that specific thread on a specific assistant. We need to be calling a lot of APIs, and this is done throughout the app. So let me first show you how I have my API subsystem configured. So if we go back here and we click on APIs, I actually only have 2 APIs here in Flutterflow. The first API actually uploads the file, and OpenAI has an API that lets you send the file that you can attach to an assistant later. And this is the case when a user decides to attach a file when they're creating their ChatGPT. Now, the second API call is a lot more important and also a lot more complex, because what it's doing here is it's forwarding specific API calls to another API call. And the reason I decided to do it this way is because we have many situations where it doesn't make sense to call multiple APIs. I wanted to combine multiple APIs into one. And for that, I decided to use an awesome product called BuildShip. Now, BuildShip is actually brought to you by the same people as Roi.io. And Roi.io is a great sponsor on this channel, and they make awesome tools. So I decided to use BuildShip for this specific app. And what BuildShip allows you to do is it allows you to create workflows that do all kinds of awesome things. So as an example, I have here a workflow called API, and this is the API endpoint here. And this is exactly what Flutterflow calls. Flutterflow calls this workflow, and it specifies the type. And so I have multiple types. So if you come back here, you can see I have multiple types. I have the create assistant workflow, I have create message, I have list messages, and I have list assistants. And the purpose of these workflows is to accept data on the front end, so from Flutterflow, and send it to OpenAI. And they're also processing some data here and there, but the end result is an awesome system where I can simply use one endpoint and send it a specific type. So if I want to do list messages, create message, I can do all of that behind the scenes using this amazing tool called BuildShip. And for my amazing Patreon members, I'm going to be making all of these workflows available. So I'm going to be exporting every single one of these workflows so that you can import it right into BuildShip. But just to briefly explain to you what I'm doing, I have this main call here, API, and here I have a simple check. So if I send a request, the type is create assistant, then this part is going to get executed. Otherwise, I have another check and I'm saying, what about list assistants? If it's list assistants, then this is going to be executed and this is going to be returned back to Flutterflow. Otherwise, I have another check. create message. In this case, this is going to get executed. And these are the actual workflows that do the main grunt work. So here we have create assistant that will create a new assistant based on whether the user submitted the file. So if the user submitted the file, we want to create a certain type of assistant, namely with that file. If the user did not submit the file, then we're going to create an assistant without the file. It's the same thing for the message, right? This workflow here will create a new message, but if there are no threads, it's also going to create a thread as well. And this is important for those initial messages. Here we have list messages, very, very simple workflow. It's simply going to execute this main OpenAI call just to get the messages for a specific thread. And last but not least, we have list assistants. And this is a simple workflow just to get a list of assistants associated with our account that we can display it in the app somewhere if we need to. And so creating all of these workflows is very time consuming as well as error prone in a no-code tool. And that is why I decided to do all of this in BuildShip, which is made exactly for this specific purpose. The next thing I want to show you is my Firebase Firestore setup. So if we come back over here, we can see that I have some Firestore collections. And the reason I decided to use Firestore is I need to keep track of various pieces of data, right? I need to keep track of the assistants I created, the threads, the messages, etc., etc. It's very, very important. This is going to save me time in terms of making these API calls when I can just save this data locally. Now, my Firebase setup is actually very, very simple. I have my assistants top level collection. I have my threads sub collection. That is because each assistant can have multiple threads. And I also have my messages as a top collection. Now, ideally, you'd want to have these messages as a sub collection for threads. But because Flutterflow only supports 2 levels, I cannot have another sub collection. So I had to make it a top level collection. And it's actually still very, very simple because I can simply filter for specific messages based on a thread ID inside of the app, as you're going to see in just a second. All right, so now that you've seen how I set up my APIs, how I've set up my database, let me quickly show you how this app functions. Now, this app actually only has 3 screens. We have the assistants, we have the messages and the threads, and we also have 3 components as well. So when the user logs in, they're going to be seeing this assistance here, right? And this is this main page that lists their customized ChatGPTs here. And what I'm doing here is I'm pulling stuff from our Firebase storage. I'm simply looking at this assistance collection and I'm pulling the data onto this list view here. And I'm also doing a couple of things. So depending on, if that specific assistant has a file attached to it, I'm displaying a specific icon. So a darker icon means that there's a file attached. A lighter icon means that there's no file attached. Here I'm displaying the name, and here I'm displaying the prompt so that the user knows exactly which assistant or ChatGPT they are working with. Now, another interesting thing here is that when the user clicks on one of these items here, on one of these widgets here, there's going to be an interesting logic here, right? So the first thing that we need to figure out is if they click on an assistant, whether that specific assistant has any threads to it, which means that has the user previously interacted with that assistant or not? If the user has not interacted with it, meaning that there's no threads, we're going to redirect them to the messages screen so that they can start a conversation, and we're going to create a thread for that conversation automatically. Otherwise, we're going to redirect them to threads, right? If there are threads, let's redirect them to threads. If not, let's go ahead and send them to the messages screen so that they can start a conversation. So that is that flow there. The next flow I want to show you is the threads flow. So we are displaying that sub collection here. So this is the sub collection with a specific assistant reference that we're passing from the other page. And here we're displaying the last message. And here I'm displaying the ID of the thread. And this is mainly for debugging purposes. I just want to see what is the ID in case I need to look up some information about the thread. In the production version of the app, you probably do not want to display that, okay? Now, if the user clicks on this right here, we have an action, and this is very, very simple. We're simply going to navigate them to the messages screen. Now, this messages screen should be familiar to many of you who have been watching my channel because this is the exact same format that I create my messages in all my chat apps. Okay, very, very simple. We have a list view that displays the messages from that messages collection. We are filtering them by the thread ID, okay, that we're passing from the previous page so that we know which thread that we're dealing with. And then depending on the message, either we are going to be displaying the message to the left when it's from the AI, from the system, it's going to be on the left, or it's going to be justified to the right. It's going to be right justified if it's a message that we send. This is kind of how all chat apps work, right? The messages that you send, the messages that I send as the user, are displayed on the right-hand side. The messages that the other person sends are displayed on the left-hand side. And so that is all I'm doing here. I'm simply displaying all the messages like this, but the gist of the logic happens here, right? So we have 16 actions here. Lots of things are happening here, and you definitely want to clone this app to see exactly what's happening firsthand. If you're going to be building apps like this, it's not enough for me to explain to you how this works. You guys want to clone it, you want to see it, you want to test it, you want to build apps like I'm building this app here. You want to do it from the comfort of your own computer. In any case, if you open this up, what I'm doing here is I'm showing a snack bar that says sending message, and then I'm executing an API call that's going to create that message. Now, in the backend, inside of BuildShip, I have a couple of logics there that I talked about, where if there's a thread associated with the message, then we're going to attach the message to that thread. If there are no threads associated, then we're going to create a brand new thread. All of that is done in the backend. We don't need to do it right here. All of that is done in the backend. Here, what I'm doing is I'm displaying this waiting for response, a couple of status messages. Now, here I'm checking whether this is a new thread or an existing thread. If this is a new thread, then we also need to create a thread in our backend, in our Firebase database. This is different from the API because we need to do it on both sides. We need to do it on the API, but we also need to do it ourselves as well. And here, this is where we're doing here. We are creating this new thread here with the data here. And once we've created the thread, now we can create a new message. And remember, here we're creating this message not as an API call, right? Not as in the backend. We're creating it in the Firebase Firestore, right? This is all of these are create documents call, right? Because we need to have that data in our database so that it's going to be easier to kind of display. So we're creating my message. We're creating the AI message here. In this case, we don't have a response yet, so we're just saying thinking. So now we've saved the user's message, and we've also saved the system's message as thinking. And that is because the system needs time, and that can take maybe 1 second. It can take a couple of seconds, depending on what you're doing, depending on how you've configured your custom ChatGPT. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be waiting 2 seconds, because I know it's going to take more than 2 seconds most of the time. And I'm going to issue the call, and this is where I'm asking the system, hey, do we have an answer yet? This is exactly what it's doing. We're grabbing the last message here, and we're creating a loop, and this loop keeps looping until there is a message from the system. So I have here a custom function called got assistant message, okay? And until this is false, I want this loop to continue cycling. And this loop is going to loop until we got the assistant message. And so if we click here, you can see this function here. And this function is checking that we have role assistant. And the text actually has some text in it, because sometimes ChatGPT replies with an assistant, but there's empty text. And so we want to make sure there's actually some text to it. Now, this whole process, this loop right here, is called polling. And that is because we keep asking the system if we have any news, right? We need to keep doing it because the system can't let us know, right? We need to ask the system. That is what we have to do. So we're going to wait another second, and then we're going to ask again, and then we're going to update our local state to the new response. And then we're going to check on this loop again. Did we get the answer yet? Did we get the answer from the assistant? What's the last message? It needs to be from the assistant, because if it's not, this loop is going to continue, okay? Now, when we do get an answer from the assistant, meaning that we get an answer from the system, here we are updating this thinking message. Remember, we have that placeholder that says thinking. we're going to change it to the real answer, right? And so this is what we're updating it to the real answer that we get from the JSON call. This is exactly what's happening. And this gives you that nice behavior, right? You have that thinking there, and then all of a sudden it changes to the real message. Really, real nice behavior where the user does not need to refresh, reload, come back, go back, come back to the page. All of that is done automatically. And last but not least, we want to clear the input field. It's a nice touch. And typically, if the user is going to send a message, they want that, they want that text input field to be cleared of anything so that they can send a new message next time. So lots of things happening here. And like I said, you guys definitely want to clone this app by joining our amazing Patreon community. And so this is our big workflow here. And that is pretty much it. Once you have all of this configured, you configured your APIs, you configured your backend database. In this case, we're using Firebase's Firestore. You'll be able to leverage OpenAI's API that allows you to create your own personalized and customized ChatGPTs. Oh, and before I forget, let me show you the coolest thing here. So if we click here, we can actually publish this app, and that is exactly what I did, right? So here's our app. We're gonna click here, and now our app is published online. You can visit it at personalgpt.flutterflow.app, and you're gonna see all of these things here. Now, let's say you have created your own personalized, customized ChatGPT, and let's say you've created something called History Expert. Now, you can click on it, and you can share this ChatGPT with anyone you want, and they'll be able to create these threads and communicate with your personalized and customized ChatGPT. And in my opinion, this is probably one of the coolest features around. You're actually taking a vanilla ChatGPT, you're configuring it any way you want. You can give it files, you can give it other things, you can give it a custom prompt, and you can just give it to someone and say, hey, I created a custom ChatGPT for a specific purpose. Maybe it's for your business. Maybe it's for some personal reasons. Whatever they may be, you can do this right now. So all you need to do is take this link, share it with anyone, and they can come back to it, and they can communicate with this custom ChatGPT that you have created for them. So as an example, let's say you shared this custom ChatGPT with me. Well, I'm going to open this up, and let's say I click on this EU thread, and I can continue this conversation. I can say something like, what is the smallest EU country right now? Okay, we're going to click this button right here, and it's sending the message, and it says thinking here. It's going to think for a little bit, and there's the answer. The smallest EU country by both population and area is Malta. And so I can come back, I can create another thread, and I can communicate with your custom ChatGPT that you have created for my specific needs or purposes. And obviously this has lots and lots of applications. There's so many things that you can do with it, and that is why I'm super excited by this feature and by this functionality that was so difficult to accomplish before, and now it's really, really simple and easy. And so like I said during the video, if you are looking to build your own custom ChatGPTs, you want to personalize, you want to customize it, you want to give it to others, you want to maybe sell it to businesses, so many things that you can do with it, you definitely need to view and or clone this app. Because unlike some of the other apps that I build, the simpler apps, you can simply watch the video and you'll be able to build the same app as well. This app here is a rather complex app. It took me some time to build, and that is why you can't really do this app justice by simply watching the video and expecting to kind of build out this app. Lots of things are happening here, and certainly you can build it out yourself, but it's just going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of effort, whereas you can easily view and or clone this app by joining our amazing Patreon community. And so if you're looking to take your no-code level up a notch, you're looking to build some of these interesting ChatGPT functionalities, you're looking to leverage this new API that OpenAI itself has graciously provided us with, then you definitely need to be able to view and or clone this app, preferably to clone this app. And remember, that's not all. When you join our amazing Patreon community, you're going to get access to all the apps that I publish as part of this channel. And that means over 150 apps are going to be available for you to view and or clone. And plus, you're also going to get access to extra content such as Q&As, live streams, behind the scenes content, as well as our Patreon supported masterclass series where I do deep dives on specific topics that the community votes on. And in fact, just recently, I did a big Q&A where I answered lots of the questions that were presented to me, if not all the questions. And so if you're interested in getting access to a lot of this extra content, then you definitely need to join our Patreon community. And above all, when you join our amazing Patreon community, you're going to be supporting this channel and supporting my work, and that is greatly, greatly appreciated. So if you're serious about all of this, there is no other option than joining our amazing Patreon community, and you can do just that using the link in the description below the video.